Episode 18. Here we go. What we're talking about today is balancing creativity with client expectations. It's a good one. It's a good one, and something that I think everybody listening or watching can probably relate to, just because it's there's a tension there, isn't there? So where do you want to start?
I want to start by asking you the same question.
Okay, I was adding time there. Yeah. It is a difficult one, isn't it?
I guess it depends, first of all, how tight the brief is.
Yeah.
And the project, how tight the project is in terms of, and I always use this example because it's just so obvious. If you was to do an advert for a funeral parlour, for example, or a funeral directors, a parlour is American, I guess, isn't it? For a funeral directors, there's not going to be much room to play in that because it has to be that tone, you know. But for a fast food brand, shall we say, there's probably a bit more room because it's very, very everyday, isn't it? And death is as well, but you don't want someone mucking about and making stupid noises when you're trying to sell funeral services.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it does depend a lot on what the project is to start with. But, and the brief. I've had some very, very rigid briefs before. Like I had a 6-page document about brand voice once. They sent me after I'd done the job, actually.
Excellent.
Which was silly.
Yeah. Silly.
Yeah, it was a bit silly.
Silly.
And never worked with them again. Well, what was I saying? I've completely forgotten. I started thinking about that 6-page document and how awful it was.
You were talking about the brief.
Yeah.
It's very important in these conversations that I actually listen, because a lot of the time you lose your train of thought and say, what are we talking about? So I am listening.
I do that.
Briefs.
Briefs. Yeah. The direction does help, I think. If they say something like playful, light-hearted, energetic or something like that, then there's room to adapt the way that you can, I'm talking about voiceover, obviously, the way that you can lead into certain lines and things like that. So if something funny is said in one line, you could add a little chuckle at the beginning of the next line, as if you're sort of, you're fully into it then because you're believing that what you've read is funny. And that sort of stuff is very rarely written into the script. That would be me making that decision to put that laugh in there.
Okay.
And sometimes they say, love that bit. Sometimes they say, can we just try one without the laugh? So it doesn't always work. But I think when the project is right, and maybe sometimes even if you know the people as well a bit better, there's more room to fart around, shall we say.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because I think that if you're on good terms with them, or maybe you've got a working relationship, you can take risks. And then on viewing notes or listening notes, as you would send through, you would say, yeah, I've done this because of that. If it doesn't work, we can go again.
I just want to try and reframe the word risk on that.
Okay.
I was told to make a choice and commit to that choice so it doesn't become a risk because you're fully into that. So my choice, for example, using that same example, would be, right, I'm going to laugh in that bit. I'm going to fully believe it. That's what I'm going to do. And then you commit to it, because if you don't commit to it, then it's not going to come across the best way that it can.
Okay. If you've taken that choice, but you know that it could go either way, would you reference that in your notes, or would you just send it through?
Just send it.
Okay.
And see what they say.
Wow. Okay. So that's interesting, because if I've ever taken like a risk, shall we say, creative risk, or I think, this could go either way, I will put that in my viewing notes. So I will say, I've done this because of this, and I think it works, but obviously just let me know. But I do like that I do like your way of actually just committing to it, and if they bring it up, well then
exactly.
you have an answer.
They're still allowed to push back on it. Obviously, if they don't like, they will just say. But I don't almost want to give them that element that I'm doubting the decision that I've made.
Yeah. Well, if you flag something up that they will notice because of you flagged it up, but you don't know that they would have noticed it anyway.
Yes.
So you're giving them the out, I suppose.
Yeah, and I guess the risk is that you're giving them something to focus on, so they're going to be even more sort of picky about it.
It's true. Yeah. I think you're right in terms of it really does depend on the relationship that you have, and also the size of the business as well. Because some of the time, and I don't think this is a bad thing, and I don't mind too much. Some of the time, I think that my job in that project is to execute their vision. So I'm there to execute rather than create to a certain extent. And other, maybe slightly smaller jobs or smaller companies, that's half the reason I'm there with regards to creative ideas or how do we do that. So it really does depend. And actually, I think that I quite like the mix because there is something really satisfying about them having a vision and then bringing you in to actually execute that and do that. But if you did that all the time, it would become a bit boring.
Yeah.
But then if you had to constantly come up with ideas and creative ways to do this and that would get quite tiresome and knackering, actually, just because that takes a lot of brain power. Well, for me it does. It takes a lot of bandwidth up.
I think there's definitely something in the size of the client. So I've got a guy who, he's got a job, but he makes comedy podcasts in his spare time just for a laugh. And he gets me every month to do a few like spoof ads for his podcast. And he basically just lets me get on with it. He gives me bullet points, of what the script is. So I just sort of have to flesh it out. And then really am just left to my own devices. He's never sent anything back saying, no, can you change this?
Nice.
And if you heard some of the stuff that I put in it, I'm kind of testing it to see how far I can push it sometimes.
Like a supply teacher.
Yeah, pretty much. But he, in terms of prestige, no one knows who he is because he's got a real job. He's just a hobby podcaster. But then someone like one of the, a larger radio corporation. It is corporation, isn't it? And not cooperation. Yeah, corporation.
Corporation, yeah. It's corporation, not cooperation.
God.
Competition, not
very good.
Yeah.
We've never done that one, actually. Where was I? Yes.
6-page brief.
No, don't, because I will just focus on that.
Yeah.
A larger radio corporation.
It's corporation.
Yeah, I know. I said it. I said cooperation. Anyway,
big business.
They probably have more guidelines that they have to stick to for a reason. Legal things at the strictest terms. What you can and can't do, what the client expects, because there will be an end client who I'm working towards. I think that the size, they like to have more control just because they can as well. They have people specifically to control that production.
Have you ever been in a position where it's editing by committee? So you sent something through to your contact and they say, oh, this is amazing. I'm just going to run it by the team or just going to do this. Or even worse, actually, you get feedback from your contact straight away. So you do that, send over V2. And then they say, oh, we're just going to now populate it, put it out there just to see what the team thinks.
So, yes, I'll give you a couple of examples. I can be on a call with the person who's making the ad for the radio cooperation. I really emphasise it that time.
Did you get that wrong on purpose?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's good. Thank God for that.
And we'll be done in 5 minutes. The call will start. Bit of general chit chat, maybe a bit of banter if I know them a bit more now.
Break the ice.
Yeah, I know. I did banter with other people. Sorry.
That's a shame.
And the call can be done. You do the script a couple of times. Yep, can we just try this line a bit differently? Yep, done. I'll see you later. See you next time. But there was one instance where I was doing an ad for some glasses. I think it was like spectacle glasses. And there were 7 people on the line.
Wow.
Yeah, 7 people. And some of them were not English. I don't want to give anything away by saying what country they were in, but they... I don't want to get told off by any clients I've got.
No.
But they were, non-English speakers,
Yeah.
some of them. So there was translating going on at the same time.
Amazing.
And I'm just sitting there thinking, trying to work out some of the words. Is that a bad word? Because they are,
Yeah. Shit.
So, yeah, it was...
Is that a bad word?
Le shit. Actually, is it masculine or feminine? Le and la. Anyway.
We won't work with him again.
That was very convoluted. Yeah. And it was just, the first person would say, yeah, that was a good take. And then the next person would go, can you try... Oh, actually, hold on a minute. And then someone else would start. And it was just so long-winded because 7 people all wanted to give their input. So eventually, sometimes in them situations, you just have to do what you think's best because you're getting conflicting ideas as well. Do it fast, do it slow, hot and cold.
Yeah.
So yeah, did that answer the...
Yeah. I'm going through a project. Well, I've been through lots of projects where I don't mind getting feedback as long as it's all in one part, basically. And then you do that, and then you move on. But it's when basically the content gets signed off, and then you're on to the sort of the next part, maybe titles or subs or whatever, and then there's callbacks to actually, or can we change this, which actually changes the whole structure of the whole thing, like the music timing. Yeah, that's when it can get frustrating. So I try and be really clear when I'm sending over V1, like get everybody to look at this, and then I can make those changes, and then we can get on to the next version. It just doesn't always happen. And lots of people disagree, and it just gets all a bit muddy, basically. That's when, and that can get a bit disheartening. First world problems, but disheartening.
Have you ever sent something across that you shouldn't have sent? Like it was not at a point where it should have been sent?
I thought you meant the wrong video.
Have you?
Yeah.
That's what I was leading to.
I've sent the wrong WeTransfer thing. Thanks for the video, Ben. It's something totally separate. I don't recognise any of the people. I've done that. What was your original question?
I don't know.
No?
You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah, that's true. Have I sent through anything? Oh, as in a rush job?
Yeah. So,
oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. And have they ever been signed off?
No, because my example of a rush job would be still V1.
Yep.
And I would put in, there's lots of work.
Yeah.
I like my V1 to be 80 or 90% done. Maybe if it's sort of 60 or 70% done, there's still enough that they can sign off in terms of content and flow and things like that. Yeah. But sometimes it's a case of getting it out to them and then the ball's in their court then. And if there's a delay, well, that's not on me. I've met my deadline.
Yeah. What a sneaky one.
I'm terrible. I'm not a very nice person.
Underhand tactics.
Yeah, well, sometimes you got to play the game.
All coming out now.
You got to play the game. I'm not sure that kind of fits into the sort of creativity.
What was the topic of this one again?
No, I don't think we have rambled too much. It was balancing creativity and client expectations. So I think it's all quite relevant so far. Don't worry.
What's the most outlandish thing you've tried in a video without asking the client if you can do it first?
Suitable for air. No. Well, I tell you what, actually, this is sort of twisting the question slightly. But there was a video that we're coming to the end of now, and there was a certain, I might have even talked to you about it, there was a certain cut or lack of cut in the video where the camera would just stay on the participant in silence. And it was about 10 seconds. Now, ordinarily, it's the equivalent of sort of dead air in radio. You just don't do that. But I just felt that it needed that to sort of impact. There was a sort of really impactful sort of silence, really. And I remember thinking, well, this could go one of two ways. And I didn't mention it at all in my viewing notes because I thought this is me going out on a limb, and I genuinely think this works, and I'll stand by this. And this is the reasons why. And they absolutely loved it, and everybody referenced that because I think that it was brave, but it worked. You weren't doing it just for.
Was it completely static, or did it zoom?
No, completely static.
Was that the right term then? Zoom.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can. Yeah, it's a little push in. Yeah,
push in.
A little itty bitty push in. But no, I just sort of kept it there.
Can we, on that, actually, I was talking about this with someone yesterday about silences in productions. Can we just try one now and see who breaks first?
Okay. Let's
I've gone already.
Let's go from now. And then we'll cut there. So that was the perfect out, because as soon as I say now...
Can we just try something?
Oh, bollocks. Forgot about that. Okay.
If I had to... I brought a game with me.
Always the same.
If I had to pick, would I call myself creative, sporty? What are you laughing at that for? How dare you? Creative, sporty, or witty?
Oh, that is a great question.
That's a good one.
So, yeah, actually, you are reasonably sporty. You do darts. You do a bit of running.
I like to keep fit by playing darts.
Do a bit
chess.
chess and darts. Cardiovascular. And you do like a bit of sport, but I wouldn't. But it's third out of those two. It's out of creative and witty. I mean, I've got to say witty. I've got to say witty.
I do think I'm hilarious.
Yeah. Yes.
Nailed it.
2-1.